Check 1, 2. Okay.
All right. So, we're in September. So, April, May, June, July, August, September. 6 months ago, the gentleman on my right was trending on Twitter, ladies and gentlemen. Literally trending on Twitter.
For the wrong reasons. Yeah.
All right. So, gentlemen, please share with us your name and what it means.
What my name means?
Yes.
Okay, so my name is Jack Ngare. I don't know what Jack means, but Ngare, from what I understand in Kikuyu, it means a leopard, I think. Yeah, so that's what, so you can call me Jack Leopard.
You heard him. You can call him Jack Leopard.
Yeah.
Well,
My middle name is called is you don't believe this. My middle name is Mugo.
Mugo.
And from what I heard, it's witch doctor. So
So
a leopard witch doctor.
So he is a leopard witch doctor. And I'm going to do something quite interesting. Anne, can I have your code? So we have a witch
Just a
doctor
second.
here who's a leopard. So in case you having any issues, please see Dr. Leopard on our right.
Yeah. So if you see those boards on trees,
Yes.
what are they written? Ones for witch doctors
Yes.
who can cure many things. Those are kind of mine. Yeah.
We need Dr.
Yeah.
Leopard.
Yeah.
Ama, aka Ngare.
Yes, indeed.
All right. Jack, please tell us where you were born and the order you are in your family.
Yeah. So I was born here in Nairobi, but I grew up most of I think until I was like 6 years in Nyanyuki. I'm second born. I have an elder brother and 2 younger sisters. Yeah, and then after when I was 6 years old, I think we moved back to Nairobi.
And what does it having being in the middle?
Well, I don't think I had middle child syndrome, where you have to fight for attention of anything, simply because I was never outgoing as the rest of my siblings, I suppose. Yeah, so I don't think I had that, but I think what was important is that I had a brother to look up to who I think molded me a lot, and I had 2 younger sisters who I'd make sure I protect, when the estate bully comes for them. I wasn't that strong, by the way, so I used to get my ass kicked all the time. But that's what I can say about myself.
So, being the middle child almost, what was your fondest childhood memory?
The games we used to play back then, that I'm sure, looking at the age group here, you guys have no idea what I'm going to say right now. But, when you put, muddy water into a tire, and then you put the sticks and then you push them. I think that, and yeah, someone like, what's fun about that? But yeah, it used to be, and then you make a sound with your mouth to sound like you're Lewis Hamilton. Back then, there was no Lewis Hamilton. There was someone called Bjorn Waldegard. Yeah, so that was the fondest memory I had. I can see some people at my age group. Awesome. Yeah, okay, at the back there. Yeah. Some folks here looking at me like, this guy is weird. Yeah, cool.
All right. So, what as you grew up as this young boy and in Nyanyuki, what was until the age of 6 years? What are some of the best lessons that you learned from your mom and dad and your siblings?
Yeah, I mean, if any of you have grown in a village setting like I have, it's you kind of raised by the whole village, literally. And the friends you meet, the friends you make along those lines still stick till today. So I still remember a whole bunch of them. I think one of the key lessons I learned is that no matter who you are in society, never forget where you're from, and always appreciate the journey that you've always walked. And then also, there's a tendency for you to baseline where you are in life up here, and then forget that there is some. We're all from Africa, so there is some poverty that exists down here, and you really have to empathize and know that that's where your job is to lift that up, and not just sit up here and think that's the end of the story that you've reached on your own or whatever. So and stay grounded. But the most important thing, just as I described my fondest memory as that tile I mean, you see, I still talk like we used to talk back then. We used to call it tile. Now we used to call it tire. So
Tire.
yeah, so also always remember the simple things in life are the most important ones, and not really the more complex or other
Right.
things that you add.
Jack, how did your mom and dad meet?
Okay, so I know why she's asking that. So so obviously, coming from a mixed race family, I told Jessica. So my mom is third generation Indian. So my great granddad came here during the time for building the railway. The railway, yes, the railway. Thank God he was not eaten by the ghost and the darkness. Otherwise, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. And so they're both in the medical field as doctors, and so that's how they met. They don't talk too much about it, clearly because they're old school. And there's no way an Indian mom will tell you how she met her husband, and there's no way a Kikuyu man will explain. What he did. It's impossible. So we don't know the details, but yeah, and here we are. So that kind of means I'm very stingy.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Really? So, what was it like growing up in Nyanyuki? Can you explain a little more about the village life and what it took to actually get to building your career?
Yeah, I mean, there's look. I mean, obviously, it was a very young age, and I did have a lot of good memories. We went to public school, and back then, public school were really good schools, to be honest. And also when I came back to Nairobi, I went to public schools as well. So what it taught me is that always baseline yourself with where you are, but always aspire to do better things for you, yourself, and your community. My favorite time in Nyanyuki, at least, was when we used to go and chase the sheep for our neighbors when they used to come and eat my granddad's crops. The reason why that's very fun is because then there'll be always this one sheep male that will come after you after you've chased everyone, and men would have fun with that sheep, man. It was the best time ever. So yeah, some people are laughing because I can tell they are also from the village. Yeah.
So, as you grew up in the village, what was your favorite meal, your favorite song during family celebrations?
Honestly, anything that was made by a pot and the three stones, I don't know, some it tastes really good, right? And those of you, okay, some of you have no idea what I'm talking about. So back then, there was this pot that you put on top of three stones, and you put the firewood underneath, and anything that pot used to make, it just used to taste good, even if it's burnt for some reason. So yeah, I can't speak about one specific food item. I think all of them were really great.
Okay.
Even the tea was great.
So it was specifically that particular
Yeah, smoked
pot.
tea. Yeah.
Do you have that contraption right now?
No, I don't. I don't think in my neighborhood they allow us to have that. Yeah.
Okay. What are some of the songs you enjoyed during your family celebration?
Some of the what?
What are some of the songs you enjoyed during your family celebrations?
Well, I don't know if there's any song that I particularly remember right now. But I mean, all the normal ones that, and here I can't speak specifically in my area because I've traveled through. I have tons of friends from all over Africa and Kenya, and a lot of the wedding songs are really really good. So if you ask me, the richness of wedding songs in Africa what I like most. I think I sometimes just go for the reception part, not to eat, but just to listen to the songs that they play. So yeah, that's what I think is the fondness I have. If any of you has been to a wedding elsewhere in Europe or the US, they're kind of boring. And it's almost like a chat service from beginning to end. Whereas this one is a lot of, who's dressed, there's a lot of color dressing, and there's so much music, and it's all amazing. And I like seeing that. Yeah.
Okay. So you mentioned African songs during a wedding. Which particular song is actually your best?
I don't know what they are.
Mugithi songs?
I mean, those are great, but there's also some from especially from Luyaland.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, one of my best friends actually, was his best man, and I can't remember the song, but it
Can you sing it?
No, I can't sing it. Everyone will leave. Yeah. Yeah. So we went for it. We went for it. I think it was when did they get married? In 2018. Yeah, and it was really something else. They have the drums, and then they have this thing, and then you have this procession. It's really cool. Yeah, I dance horribly, so, but it was nice. Yeah.
Okay. Jack, as you grew up, you're looking at my book very intently.
I'm seeing how many questions there are.
Okay, let me keep this. As you're growing up, what do you think you're good at?
So, I think I'm good at tech. I mean, period. I mean, I think that's why. I think that's the thing that called me the most. One of the things that people say is it's always there are two important times in your life: when you're born, and not when you die, because you're dead, but when you discover what you're put on this earth to do. And those are they're really important times, but they're also the most scary times. I mean, when you came out I'm sure you panic. That's why all babies cry. But also when you discover that this is what your calling is, it's also quite scary. And for me, immersing myself into technology, and it was for me the time when I actually this is what I'm supposed to do. I mean, I wasn't supposed to be a lawyer or something else. I was supposed to be a tech person.
And what part of your childhood or career did you figure that out?
And that's funny because unlike our contemporaries, and we were just talking with Sam, many of our contemporaries, you read about them and they say they touched their first computer when they were 6, they bought a Sinclair machine, or they did this and the other, and you're like, oh geez, the first machine I ever touched, I was 17 or 18. Yeah. So they all had a head start. Okay. Yeah. But when you, it's not like when I touched it, I said, "Wow, I'm gonna become this." No. In fact, the first time I was like, "Oh, what games does it have?" And that's as far as my interest went. But over time, after you start realizing, like back then, there were a couple of games. Like, I don't know if some of you know this. There was something called Wolf that you could download on a floppy disk. There are like 6 floppy disks that you download, and hey, guys are looking at me like they have no idea. So floppy disks are these things that you used to insert into computers that store memory, almost like flash disks. I'm sorry, what? Oh, the save icon. Thank you. You see, that's why you're smart. It's a save icon. And so you'd insert 6 of them, and if one is missing, that game doesn't play. Or one is corrupted, and those floppy disks tend to be corrupted quite often. And so I used to discover so many bugs with the game. When, like, for example, when you're supposed to shoot, I think it was intentional though, so that you don't finish the game. So when you're like, why isn't it working? I actually pressed the right button, and so you're like, okay, how do I fix that? And so that, I think those sort of bugs things are the ones I think what piqued my interest in computers. And then at that time, there were not very many people who were in the computer field as well.
All right. So some of the things that have come out is you went to a public school.
Yeah.
You came across a computer at the age of 17. So, yeah. Jack, where did you go to school, and where was your first encounter with the computer?
No, so my first encounter was actually in university, by the way.
Okay.
So in Chiromo here. I did my first semester here in Chiromo University, Nairobi University Chiromo campus, and then I had an opportunity to go outside the country. One of the very few opportunities at that particular time. And the reason why I went out is because I think my folks probably realized I was spending too much time, doing other things other than going to class. So they're like, why don't we send you to some place where it's only you, and you don't know anyone else there. I don't know what kind of strategy that is though, but it seemed to work. So I went off to the UK. I did my undergrad and my postgrad in computer science, and then went off to the US and did a second postgrad in business for IT.
School?
Sorry?
School? Primary school?
Also, I was in
school?
Kilimani. So in Nyanyuki, I was in Nyanyuki Primary, and then when I came here, I went to Kilimani Primary School, which is just down Arguin's Kodek. Anyone here went to Kilimani Primary School? Oh, there are a couple of people. So we are Kilimani alumni. Yeah. So that's.
And how is it like shifting, coming from the village, coming to Nairobi at that time?
I mean, it was quite different.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I distinctly remember Thika Road was not the way it was right now. It was full of potholes. So I remember coming in, there had so many stuff at the back, and the car is rocking all over the place, and it's a carburetor car. Carburetor is can we have like Sam? I think next time let's have a screen here, and then when I say something, you can tap and wiki it. There should be a wiki. So anyway, so it was one of those old school vans that we came with, and so the difference there is that back then there wasn't, in terms of people, Nairobi wasn't like it is right now, where it's a little bit unsafe, and you're scared to leave your kids to walk to the shop or to school alone. Back then you could. I mean, I used to stay down because my dad was a doctor. I was staying at Kenyatta Hospital, doctors' houses, and me, my sister, and my brother would walk all the way from Kenyatta Hospital, if you know where that is, all the way to Kilimani Primary School. Would walk, and it's not so bad, and we're tiny little kids walking, and it was okay. I can't remember even once anyone ever said anything inappropriate or attempted anything. Which and sometimes I used to leave the school late because of playing football late into the evening. So it was. I think Nairobi was quite good back then, I have to say. But I didn't see a difference, to be honest. I mean, for me, it was just now I have new friends, and that was it. Yeah.
So what subjects did you enjoy in high school?
I was more of the sciencey type. Yeah.
How did you figure that out?
I don't know. You just find yourself. I don't know. You just figure it out and find yourself gravitating towards one direction.
Were you a regular student at the University of Nairobi?
Yes, I was. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what was your first semester like?
So my first semester was, I mean, I think it's like any other, you're just meeting new people, you're young, you're staying alone finally for the first time, you want to discover many things, and so having fun pretty much. So yeah, it was that was it about me.
Okay. So when I asked you what are you good at, you said technology, right? And you've been 15 years in this game. So what exactly in tech?
Yeah, so just like a lot of folks I'm seeing here, I was in the dev side of things from the beginning. So I worked for BT as a solutions architect, which means that solutions architect role has changed quite a bit now. Now it seems like you're always supposed to figure out how pieces of an organization fit together. But back then, the idea was to actually build prototypes of how they will all fit together and give those templates to development team or implementation teams to actually go ahead and implement them. So that was my role, my first job actually, technically my first official job. Obviously, when you're out there, you do odd jobs. So I cleaned the subway once. I didn't serve at McDonald's though. I'm sure some you did though, but yeah, but I did clean the subway, and it was quite humbling because I think a lot of folks back then, you get your first year's school fees, and then the rest of it you have to figure it out for yourself, and so you have to get odd jobs. And so my odd job was I used to be at the library of the university, They used to subsidize my fees there, and then the rest of it I used to get it from cleaning a Kensington station. So if you know Kensington station in the UK, it's equivalent to Kencom. Yeah, and it's quite interesting when you think about it. It teaches you a couple of things. Number one, it builds character, I think. Number two is that you have to stay focused to what you want to achieve eventually.
Very interesting, Jack. So you mentioned in the conversation earlier that some of the fondest memories and things that you learned from your family was to stay grounded, be focused, and be nimble and humble. We have a lot of big tech coming into the African ecosystem, and the audience here and the ecosystem at large are very eager to join these type of companies. What made you come back to the African continent and Kenya specifically to get into big tech?
Yeah, I mean, it happened by happenstance when I was coming back, and it's quite an interesting story that I don't mind sharing. If you give me 2 minutes to do so. So number one is my mission was always to come back home. When you feel it that okay, I want to get the experience, I want to work in exciting organizations, but eventually I want to come back to come back home, and not come back home for any lofty reason, but it's just that home is best. I always felt like it's warm, it's a nice place. People are great, and yeah, if you want to do something great, for at least remember something that you did well in your life, you'll do it here at home and not somewhere else. And you don't want to also be part of the, in the Western world, you tend to be part of a small cog in a very big machine. No one, I mean, you disappear, no one even notice. Probably they'll send the guys of law and order to come and look for you. But it's generally that, you're just there. But here you have an impact. You have an opportunity to make impact. You do something small, in your small area. People do see it and do want to appreciate it. And that's the nature of how we are as Kenyans, I think, specifically. So that's why I wanted to come back home. And so I made a conscientious decision to do that. And so when I finished my postgrad at HBS and wanted to come back home, I had an option to either go back and work for BT or come back home. And so when I told my boss, my sabbatical is over, I've graduated, I want to go back home, he was like, what a bloody waste of talent. He was like, there's nothing happening in Africa. And he's not racist to anything. He's just saying what he knows about the continent. He's actually he's racist, huh? So I tried to tell him, but you guys don't have to be that mean. So he was like, stay here. I mean, in a couple of years you'll be this, you'll be that, you'll be that. I was like, no, man, I have to.
Where is here?
So that was the US. Yeah.
Where exactly?
So it was, well, not specifically. I think he meant like the office that we had in New York, but that time I was in Boston. So anyway, so I disagreed with him and I said, too bad, I'll come back. And so I came back, and I worked for NIC for 4 months, I think. And the reason why I worked for NIC for 4 months is it's not very. I mean, honestly, I came back to be busy, and NIC at that time was a very small bank. And so I remember I'd finished my work at 2 p.m. And then the rest of the time, I'm just roaming around disturbing people, And now, for your sake, I was single, so you can know what I mean. I was disturbing people, and I was like, this is and I was like, this is rubbish. I didn't come home to do this, man. I came here to be busy. So I decided, you know what? I got another job with Standard Bank, from South Africa, and then again that didn't work out for me very well because the idea was to come back home here, not there. And so they allowed me to work a lot from here. So I stayed here for quite some time. I think it was 3 years. And then again, you can't make decisions because a lot of the decisions are made elsewhere. You feel like you're not empowered. You feel like, okay, I've given a shot. At least back in BT, I could make my own decisions. I could choose what I wanted to do. And I hadn't gotten brilliant ideas like do a startup or anything like that, So I was like, okay, let me go back. So actually, I took a flight to go back and beg for my job. Yeah. one more thing, actually, another traumatic thing happened was that we had an election. So I remember it was, you're seeing, brother against brother, neighbor against neighbor, and you're like, this is.
That's 2007.
No, that was after the one after. What was the one after? 13. It wasn't as bad as that one, but it still happened, and you're like, okay, this shouldn't be happening. Okay, so anyway, I went back, and then I called my boss, and then he was like, I'm on holiday in Bali. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Do you want to wait for me? I didn't tell him why I was there. So he was like, you can either wait for me or we can meet. I don't know what you want to do. So I said, okay, let me think about it. I'll let you know. So I said, should I stay here for 2 weeks or should I just go back home? And so I decided, let me go back home. And so I was in Heathrow and I was talking on the phone. And I think the person who was, so I was speaking Swahili, I think, or at least using a mixture of English and Swahili. And then this guy at the back taps me and says, you sound Kenyan. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Kenyan. He's like, okay. I'm Kenyan too. So we introduce each other, we walk around, and then he's an old man. He looks like my dad. So I'm like helping him carrying his bags because he had a huge bag. So I was helping him carrying. He tells me, take me here, I want to buy something for my wife. So I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we go. I help him choose things. I'm giving suggestions. And then when we get to the plane, when we get the boarding gate, it was a KQ flight, and then he's in business class. Obviously, So I go with him. I said, no, it's okay. I'll carry your bag for you. So I carried his bags. I went and then I put it up for him. I stored it away. He sat down. Then I told him, okay, it was nice meeting you. I hope we meet again soon. I'm going to my seat. And then he looks at me and says, no, sit here next to me. So I'm like, no. You don't understand. See, in boarding passes, this ticket number you see here means I need to go and sit at the back. So he's like, no, sit here. So I'm like, okay. So I sit, and there you sit with your bum halfway out, because you'll be told to go, right? So and indeed, this lady comes up, the stewardess comes and says, excuse me, sir, can I see your boarding pass? And I'm like. And then she looks at it. She says, "I'm sorry, sir. Your seat is at the back." I'm like, how embarrassing, So then he looks at her and he says, "No, he's my guest. Let him sit here." So she looks at him and says, "Okay, let me see what I can do." And she goes. I'm like, who the hell is this guy? And I'm like, who? So I take out my phone on the side, and I'm like searching his name, James Mwangi. So I see. I'm like, this guy looked familiar. I knew he looked familiar. So then all of a sudden I remember all the stories I told him, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm like, what, did you really have to tell him that one? So I'm like, now I'm sweating. So I'm like, James, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was you, and I'm so sorry for all the things I said. And then he busts out laughing, and he was like, no, you're honest. So please keep telling me those stories. So anyway, so that flight was the most uncomfortable flight I ever went for, because obviously it's a long flight. At some point you want to go to the washroom, and you're sitting on the window, and he's sitting on the aisle, so you don't want to disturb him. You're like, can I, and then he has to wake up. So it was really uncomfortable. Anyway, long story short, when I get to Nairobi, he tells me in the way he likes to speak, you cannot keep working for Mzugus. You come and build our Roku companies. Yeah, so that was cool. Yes, so he told me that, and then he gave me his business card. He says, if you change your mind, let me know. So I sat on it, thought about it, and then read a lot about what the mission of the bank was, and what they've done, where they've come from, what they do, a lot of things. And so I think after a week I called him, and then he says, yeah, come in the office, come. And then we talked, and then he was like, okay, we're trying to bring up at that time Equitel. So he was like, and your background is in telcos, you understand what they do, so please go ahead and lead up the technical team. And so I was like, awesome, and you get empowered, and so that's how I ended up staying.
Right.
And I spent 6 years there. Thank you.
You know, that's really intriguing, James. I mean, not James. Oh God,
See, even you make the same mistake. Yeah.
that's really intriguing, Jack, because uh, James Mwangi does that to people.
Yeah.
You know, I actually met him when I was walking down Washington on a street, and he was sitting on a bench just talking casually to another person, and I was like, I just passed, and I was like, yo, that's James Mwangi. Then I looked back at him, and he's like, hey, hi. And he remembered me because we
Yeah.
had hosted him for a fireside chat in 2012 at the iHub. So, I mean, he's very down to earth, very grounded, as you said.
Absolutely.
So, Jack, as you sip your water, you've learned some of the things that you're good at. What are some of the things you're not so good at?
Oh wow, lots of things. There's a list. Where do I start? I mean, so one of the things I think I'm really good at, but I really suck, is singing. So when I saw your album, and I was like, when you're talented, I'm horrible. In fact, half the time my kids are like, Dad, stop. You're really bad at it. I think a lot of the artsy kind of things I'm not that great at. So that's for sure. Yeah.
Okay. So you've given out some information.
And-
You're a
and-
dad.
Yeah, I am. I have
us more about
three
that.
kids. Yeah, so I have three kids, and a funny. I told the guys of Microsoft also. The other thing I'm not good at is also football. I think I am, but I'm not really. I'm not. And it's so funny. People like me. I don't know if you notice. We walk a little bit like almost like this. And so we tend not to be that great at football. I noticed that. I think footballers, you have to, your feet have to be like this, like almost like you're bow-legged, right? So a funny story about that is that our current outgoing president is also walks this way,
Yes.
right? So when we're launching Microsoft Development Center, some of you may have seen it. So he walks also this way, and I walk this way. So half the time when we're walking, I'd step on him. And I'm like, I'm so sorry. and he's like, no, it's okay. And then it happens like 3 times after. I was like, oh man, thank God this was not the 80s, man. People would have heard he was last seen, It was so embarrassing. In fact, I was like, I need to go for lessons to walk like a footballer, a real footballer this way, not this way. Anyway, so yeah, I have 3 kids. I have 2 boys and 1 girl. 11, 7, and 4.
Okay. All right. How did you get to meet your partner?
Yeah. So I mean, it's when I came back. So I think we've known each other for many years, and so when I came back, that's how we met. Just we've been friends for a while.
Okay. Okay. Jack, tell us what you're not good at. Music, not singing. What else?
Football, and I don't know what else interesting there is there. Clement, what else am I not good at? You worked with me for 3 years. My hair. Okay, so why Clement is saying that he's an engineer at Microsoft, and so why he's saying my hair is because during COVID, he got hired during COVID, and so at that time no one was going to the barber shop, right? So my hair was really long, and so they used to make fun of me that it was a toupee. So I used to tell them, guys, this is not a toupee; it's my real hair because they think I'm bald, and so that's why he's saying my hair. I'm not bald. This is actually my real hair. Yeah.
Jack, that's funny. So people used to make fun of you?
Yes, a lot.
Oh, brother. Okay. As you're growing up, what are some of your childhood fears?
Geez, that took me a left field. I'm not sure how to answer that. I don't know if I had any fears, to be honest. I can't think of anything right now. However, right now, what I can tell you as an adult, some of the things you fear a lot is, at least for me, where I sit. I can talk about professionally. So one of the things you fear most is that we and we're talking a little bit with Sam earlier on is look, the role that some of us play in this ecosystem is to go out and bring opportunities to all of you young people here, especially in the tech industry. And for me, that's what I feel is what my role is on this ecosystem. I don't have extremely brilliant ideas like Sam to come up with or Conrad to come up with a company from zero and take it to a multi-million-dollar company. What I do best is I'm able to sit down and convince a lot of people sitting in Redmond or in Silicon Valley to come and invest in Africa for tech talent and for and build their development centers here, or at least expand the scope. And the same thing in equity. It was a greenfield. Finserve and Equitel was a greenfield kind of investment. They started hiring people from scratch, and out of that simple company, they had about 250 people additional headcount. In Microsoft now they're hiring. I think they are probably about 500 people sitting in Microsoft. And then in Google now, they're probably going to have a lot more directly involved in that initiative. But that's what people like I do. That's a role, we play. Create opportunities for those of us behind us who, when during my age, we didn't have those opportunities. So the fear here is that, it's two things. Number one, as an ecosystem, we need to rise up to that challenge. So we need to get more engineers so that they don't say that we do not have talent in Africa. We do have it, but we just need to make sure that the skill set level gets to the level of global skill sets. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that we keep our promise that Africa is the place for them to invest, and so they can get a return on investment. And so those are things that keep me up at night of how can we make sure that we leverage these people who are coming here so that, our brothers and sisters don't have to leave Kenya to work for Meta or for Amazon or for Google or for Microsoft. They can do it from right here and earn a decent wage compared to other places.
Okay, you hear that, right? The opportunities are right here. Say yes. The opportunities are in Africa. Yes. We can do more. All right. The audience sitting on that table and that table, carry your cans and put them to the side. We want you to be part of this group and share the knowledge with us. Jeff, you are part of those people that bring opportunities to this ecosystem. Yeah? What I'm interested in learning, how do you do it? You take people out? You go visit abroad? What are these young people here and people like us who want to work in big tech supposed to do to get into those ecosystems or create opportunities around them?
Okay, so first thing, to work for any big tech company is always going to be self-driven as an individual. You have to believe in your mind that that's what you want to do. But second thing, you have to action it. They hire only the best. I'll tell you now. To go through those interviews, even I went through them. You at least go through 5 loops, and they are quite grueling. Grueling in the sense of they want to appreciate how you think more than what you can do. They want to see how you solve problems, okay? How you think through it. They have an appreciation that your background is not like their background, so they will never, for example, penalize you if you don't think like someone who sits in Silicon Valley. They want to see your perspective, and they want you to ask as many questions in those interviews as possible. But the most important point is that you know your stuff. You really are immersed into what you do. And how do you gauge where you are? And that's a very interesting question. If you're able to contribute feedback, if you're an engineer, if you're a product manager, if you're a content writer, if you're able to contribute to any sort of international, global kind of forum, then you're good enough to join them, to be honest. One of the things I used to tell the guys who are interviewing to join Microsoft is that if you've contributed something to Stack Overflow, you've contributed some sort of input to a GitHub project, and it has been accepted, then you really should think about if you're thinking about joining Google or Microsoft, then you should. Having said that, there are lots of opportunities. You don't have to only join Google and Microsoft. Africa is talking is a great place to work. You know, there's all these opportunities there. What I can say is that it's not bad for you to take, let's say, some time out and do 3 years in Microsoft and then come back to Africa is talking and say, hey guys, I have this new way of thinking and I have this new experience and I can bring it and infuse into your products. I mean, that's also a value add. Doesn't mean that you're any different from someone who has been there for 10 years working at AIT. No, not at all. It's just exposure. And I encourage young people to get as much exposure as they can. The guys who joined Google, one of the things I tell them is, sit here, learn, get frustrated, to some extent, enjoy it for 2-3 years, and then make your decision where you want to go from there. Okay? If you want to stay onwards and become, a senior engineer, onwards to a vice president, then do it. But what's more important is that for you to be able to just benchmark yourself and be honest with yourself and say that I want to be the best in what I do. And for sure, you will be. One of the challenges I always throw to every single forum I go to, if you genuinely believe you're the best, and I can only speak here for those of you who are devs, if you genuinely believe you're the best and you do not get a job, please give me a call. I will get you one. If you're the best. And I've said this for the past 4 years, even in universities. And guess what? No one has ever sent me a WhatsApp message. And by the way, I'm serious. I put my number right there on the screen. So if you want my number, you're free to share. If you don't find somewhere, please call me. I mean, WhatsApp me. Usually call, it's hard for me to pick, but WhatsApps, I'll see them for sure. So if you're the best, if you're not the best, don't WhatsApp me. Yeah. So that's what I think. That's what it takes. Now, having said that, they are also very good at allowing you to grow and discover yourself. And the question always people ask is, should I join a big tech company in Kenya or should I go outside the country? And I always say, look, your first choice, join here first. Because you want to impact here, and it's a big deal, believe me, when you impact here locally first. But it doesn't mean that you can do 2 years in Kenya and you can't take another 2 years in Ireland or in Silicon Valley and then come back. Please, we need more of us out there as well, as much as we need people here. All right? If you look at the KCP results that came out, that's a true indicator of how many kids will turn 18. And they are, the KCP results of 1.2 million kids. 1.2 million kids sat for KCPE. Meaning at some point, about 1.2 million will turn 18. The reason why we need to make sure that we invest in people like you right now to be good at what you'll do is because then you guys will start up the next startups, will work for Google and Microsoft and create more opportunities for others. Someone like sending the elevator down for others to come. I mean, you guys need to tell me, which industry shall Kenya build, even if we got the best president ever? Let's say Wajakoya. Let's say we got. Let's say that's not from me. Please, for those of you watching this live, it's Sam who said that, not me. But even if we got a Lee Kuan Yew, the guy who built Singapore, which industry shall we start that will hire 1.2 million people every year? Which one? It's a ticking time bomb. And so we really need to figure this out. And that's why, again, back to what I said, for some of us and a lot of you here who are going to join us in whichever organizations, whether it's Google or Microsoft or whatever, let's create these opportunities for our people and let's keep going. Yeah.
Jack, with that advice, in another life, what would you have been? And why?
Wow, Jessica, you're really catching me those questions. What would I have been in another life? So there's once I actually contemplated being, and this is gonna sound very weird, a miner, like physical miner, because I used to think that you'll discover this big rock, and then you dig it. And then you'll see a shining diamonds inside there, and then you'll sell them. So I used to think that was naively until I actually visited a mine a mine and realized, a diamond doesn't look like a diamond, right? It doesn't. It actually just looks like a stone. Or I'll go to a river and do that thing that people do with their pans and find gold nuggets in there all day. So I think that was what I was destined to be in another life.
Why?
I don't know. I just find it was peaceful and quiet, and I don't have anyone else to, to talk to. Yeah.
Okay. Since we are in this momentum of introspection and thinking of what you'd be in another life, what's your ideal night out?
Okay, so now I'm a lot older, so I hardly ever go. I think most of the time it's just dinners, to be honest. Yeah, I don't have any crazy clubs that I can think of right now. But yeah, most of the times it's just dinners.
Where?
Yeah, so there are a couple of good spots. So there's this. So if I want local food, there's this place in Ridgeways that has really nice nyama choma. I don't remember its name, but I know where it is. Walkabout. Yeah, that's the one. I think so. Yes, Walkabout. Yeah. You've seen me there. Okay. Yeah. So there's that place. It has really nice meat. Really good. And local food. Everything that you want local is really good there. I actually prefer local food, to be honest. If you want, I don't know, a good. I'm more of a fish. If I go to one of the other restaurants, what restaurant can I pick up that's really good fish? There's this one in Westlands. What is its name? See, I'm not good at their names, but it's I think they shut down though. It used to be at Delta. Yeah, they have many restaurants there.
Yeah.
So they used to have a nice Indian place that has nice fish. So yeah, I used to like it.
Aha, the Indian genes are coming out.
Sometimes, yeah. I just don't nod like this. That's the only thing I can do very well.
All right. Yeah. So, Jack, you are currently hired as, and I'll read it out, Technical Director of the Office of the CTO at Google Cloud. What does this mean?
Okay, so that's a very long title. Hence, I don't have business cards. So, what it means is that, look, companies like Google recognized that you have different places in the world that have got innovation and technologies that can either infuse into Google's products, or Google can send to organizations or infuse Google products into organizations across the world. Now, the Office of the CTO only works traditionally with tier 1 customers. So here you're talking about, the Volkswagens, the NASAs, and those are the people, Walmart, who they typically work with because they're limited resource. I think globally we're about 30, I think. So you can only have so many people working on so many projects at one particular point in time. So the reason why they found it interesting to have someone sitting in Africa, and specifically sub-Saharan Africa, was that they recognized that there's a lot of what I like to call frugal innovation. We out of our challenges, we come up with such interesting solutions to our problems. And so they're like, is there an opportunity for us to identify people who are doing interesting things, and either we have a discussion with them about bringing them onto Google platforms, as far as us acquiring them, or is there a thing we can do for them to empower them more from a CTO level? And a CTO in Google, is the one who basically, he's the guy who defines the product roadmap for Google all up. So that's why I'm sitting here in Kenya, which is quite a transition for me because I don't have anyone reporting to me, and so I'm an individual contributor, what you call an individual contributor, and so my job is simply to get those sort of things, build prototypes, write papers, show how the technology in Africa can work for Google as well. My ambition is that I hope some of you here will have great ideas or are working on excellent things that I can actually present to them, and they can actually say, let's partner with those people. And then on the flip side, if there are organizations here in Africa, like the big customers of Google who need some of your services, I'm hoping that we can also use that to as a means to get African organizations more empowered with technology. Yeah.
What's the best part of what you do, Jack?
I think people. I mean, I meet really, really impressive people. And here I'm not talking just about internally in Google, but also externally. I remember one of the first meetings I went for in Google. Let me start from internally. One of the first meetings I went for in Google, we were 8 of us, and 3 of the people there were Turing Award winners. If you know what Turing Award winners are, that's the Nobel Peace Prize for computer science. So when they ask you what do you think, you're like, man, I better please don't say something stupid. Huh? There's a Swahili word that came into me. You just say, I hope square ufala. So you try and use all the English you've learned to pass the point across. No, but on a serious note, it is, you meet such impressive people who are so down to earth. I met one of them who actually came up with, one of the guys who wrote something called TensorFlow, which is the library used for AI. And he's such a nice guy. I wrote to him and I told him, look, there's something about the paper he wrote and I didn't understand it. It was way above me. So I wrote to him and I said, I'd like to talk to you about this. I just don't understand. If you can write to me back and just explain to me, I'd be happy. He says, no, why don't you grab 15 minutes of my time? I grabbed 15 minutes of his time and we went through it, and he just explained to me like a 2-year-old. No, this is what we do. This is what happens, etc. And so they're such great people, to be honest. And then also at the same time, because a lot of my roles, I think for the 3 years I was in Microsoft, I was deeply involved in building the development center here. So I didn't get to meet many people outside. And so now I get to meet a lot of organizations in Africa and across the world. One of the projects we were working at some point when I just joined it was winding down, was how to infuse AI into Volkswagen cars. And you meet the Volkswagen folks, and they're such interesting people, and you're all the way here and we use their cars, and you think about the processes they use in terms of infusing this technology into their cars, and it's really amazing. Obviously my ambition is that one day I hope one of their AI will be built by someone here. And so how do we get that to happen? So the people.
Thank you, Jack. You've mentioned about your career path, meeting James Mwangi on a plane or at the airport, all the way to actually joining Microsoft and now eventually Google. How do you know you are ready for some of these roles, Jack? What are the skills that you think you had and didn't have, and things that you grew in?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll tell you now. When I joined Equity, I had serious imposter syndrome, because you meet impressive people. Guys who grew this. That bank was 66 out of 66 when Kenya had 66 banks, and then they grew it all the way to number 2 at that time. Now they're number 1. So you meet these impressive people, and you're like, wow. And I joined the Microsoft. I'm like, you meet really smart people, both local and international, and you sit down and you're thinking to yourself, man, I'm gonna be fired next month. I swear. Because and then you join Google and you sit there. One of the first meetings you have is 3 Turing Award winners, and you're like, oh man, see now what you've done. And so you have serious imposter. And look, guys, imposter syndrome is good. And why do I say it's good? It's great to be confident, but also feeling like you have this way to go also keeps you in check a little bit, and so you don't have too much of a big head. And so it's okay to feel like, oh man, I need to know more things. I need to do more, because that hunger keeps you going as well. Anyone who runs a business, like Conrad and Sam here, will tell you that there's always a next hill to climb. You get this big customer. Okay, let's get two more bigger customers. Let's get 3 more bigger customers. And so that's the way it is even as individuals. There's always going to be something more for you to do. And so it's important. I think imposter syndrome is a good thing to have in most cases. Just don't let it overpower you. It's also negative when you feel like you actually don't belong in a place. Don't let it get to that point. It's just that it prompts you for action, and that's the important thing. So for me, that has been my experience so far. That getting that insatiable need for sorry, that's my alarm. Yeah, so having that feeling so that you can do more things. I think that's what pushes you to actually do a lot more than you need to. Yeah.
Another note. What is that alarm about?
So I'm not diabetic or anything like that. It's so I always put at 7 o'clock. That's the time I'm supposed to go and call the kids for dinner. So clearly that's not gonna be. Yeah. Yeah.
How do you balance having a family and your career?
Yeah, no, it's difficult. It really is hard. Look, I don't want to sit here and lie to anyone that if you decide you wanna put yourself into your career, there's no price to pay. Whatever road you choose, there's a price to pay. If you decide to work hard, if you decide to be long hours in the office, if you decide to be coding all night, there are people who will not appreciate that. Okay, and that's just the price you have to pay. Is there a balance? Sure, but balance is always going to be subjective. According to who? It has to be according to yourself and the people around you. So I do have to say, I mean, there are periods of time like I didn't spend enough time with my kids. I'll tell you that. The equity time, I'd come into the office because we're doing a telco and we're running the digital channels, and equity is a monster. I mean, 6 countries, over 12 million customers, and everything is going digital. And then you have compliance, you have central banks, you have businesses. It's a lot. And then the way the organization is that you really have to be hands-on on everything because it's a bank. It's difficult to delegate some of these things. And so I remember sometimes I'd get to the office at 5 a.m. and leave at 9 p.m. And there is a price to pay. The question is are you willing to pay the price? Is it worth it for you as an individual? And then the second thing is it worth it for the people around you? Do you have a good support system? Now, by the time I was leaving, equity, for me, I was burnt out. I said, I really have done enough, and I want to spend more time now with my kids, and so that's why I left. And it just so happened those 3 months I stayed outside equity. I actually had no job, by the way. I had zero job. But it was the best 3 months ever. I was like taking them to school. We're having lunch. We would have dinner together. We'd go for ice cream. I forgot about how ice cream tastes, by the way. It was really nice. And then of course, Microsoft came calling, and so when they told me they're doing a dev center, there was a no-brainer, and they're a bit more structured. So that was a good thing for me. I could not to that extent have the privilege of picking them from school and dropping them and all those things, but yeah, it was a good break for me.
So it was a good break for you. So you must have built some ethos. So what's your philosophy in a nutshell?
Yeah, I mean, for me, mine is very simple. Like I said, stay grounded and really work hard. I mean, those of you who know me, and I've probably have heard of me. When you look at me, I'm really unimpressive, to be honest, and I think I'm very average, in all respects. I'm not. I don't have dreadlocks. I don't. I'm actually quite average. I'll tell you that for a fact. But what you do is that you make sure that you at least for me, always stay grounded and always work hard. I mean, those are just the basic things. Stay and when you work hard, stay work hard with the intention of solving a challenge that you have, but not also being delusional about what you're doing. And the reason why I say delusional is because I also sit on a couple of boards of some fintechs, and you can see it's nice to be tenacious, but at the same time also be realistic about what you're doing. So stay grounded and work hard. And I think I tell you what, the universe, whatever you believe in, if you believe in God, then God. If you believe in the universe will always reward people who work from the heart and do this and do the right thing. Somehow, you may not win in office politics, you may not win in short-term benefits, but the long-term play, you always come out on top. Believe me.
Were you ready for Microsoft, Jack?
Was I ready?
Mm-hmm.
In what sense?
To join them. You said it was
yeah.
a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, the mission was noble. They're setting up development centers to hire engineers, content writers, product managers in Africa. I'm like, what's there not to like about it? And so that's why, for me, I felt it. It was something that I wanted to join. Yeah.
So, for some of the people in the audience who are thinking of a change in career path or trying something different from their degree, what kind of advice do you have for them?
So there are two things. The first one is, if you want to make a change, why are you making that change? Look, one of the things I say is we are not as privileged as some of you maybe are, but during my time, you're not as privileged to follow your dreams because, it's a generational problem. We didn't have parents back then who could bankroll our passions and let us stay in their houses for until we were 36, and you're still in your bedroom. By the time you're already 18, your parents are looking at and saying, "Dude, you need to get out." So a lot of us had to put our passion on hold. It just so happened for some of us they aligned at the right time. But you have to pick and choose what your battles are. Do you follow your passion that will lead to career progression and make sure that you are able to put, you're able to support yourself and support the people around you? Or can you do them both? If your passion, let's say, is floral arrangements, yeah, you like to arrange flowers. Can you do your job right now and still do that? Or can you pursue them at the same time? I mean, those are some of the things that you really have to make a trade-off choice. And life is all about trade-offs, by the way. All of you have sacrificed time to be here and interact with us. So those are trade-offs that you chose. And so everything in life is a trade-off. If you want to change your career, let's say you don't like what you studied. And by the way, I have a lot of problems with our universities, and don't get me started on that. In terms of them not teaching people skills that are meant to be absorbed in the industry. But if you want to pivot to something else and you think it can be good for you, please do it. Do it. But also bear in mind that you have yourself to support and maybe you have other people to support. So just kind of make that I know when we watch a lot of movies and videos from the West, people always say how you'll make it, but the social fabric of Western countries is not like ours. There you get food stamps if you're poor. You get an allowance from the government. When's the last time anyone got an allowance from the government? In fact, if anything, Ngare wants more. Right? So you have to think local. Yes? It's one thing for us to absorb all the movies we see about this guy who decided to start up this thing and he made it through. But believe me, they always had some capital backing from somewhere. So you have to make sure that you're realistic about and give your business, give your thought, give your dream at least 3 to 5 years. Don't think you're going to start up something and in 1 year it's going to bear fruit. It's not. If all these organizations, I'll tell you what, who knows when Safaricom became a company? Safaricom was started in 1992 in Telcom. They became a company in 1998. So that was 6 years when they were incubated. All right. When did M-Pesa become M-Pesa? After how many years? 7. 7 years is when it actually made headlines that, oh, there's this thing in Kenya that's actually doing a good job. Equity. It started as a building society, now with money. Not the time it was when Dr. Mwangi took over in 1993. It became a bank in 2002. 9 years. So you can see for anything that we appreciate right now, and those were startups, by the way. If you think about Safaricom, it was a startup because it was incubated in Telcom. Building Society was a startup. So anything that in this economy, at least the African economy, for you to scale, give it years. Let me broaden that. Across the world. Amazon, how many years before even we knew what happened?
5.
More than 5. Yeah.
10.
Yeah. And now it only turned a profit in 2016. From the time it was set up in 1990 something. So all these dreams and all these ideas and all these things that you're pursuing takes time. If you want to learn how to code a new language, it'll take time. No matter how smart you think you are, no matter how brilliant you are, it'll take time. So start now. But give yourself some leeway. Yeah.
Patience, Jack. That's the emphasis here. And the Gen Zs are not patient. Some of us just generally in life, we're not patient. How do we cope with the impatience? We want to build faster. We want to code faster. We want tech talent faster in the ecosystem. The likes of Google, Microsoft hiring hundreds of developers, Safaricom thousands to this date. How are we coping with all this? There's impatience in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and you're right. We are all impatient because our food now is microwaved and when we want channels, we just switch on our TV and we have channels. You want news of today, you go to YouTube and whatever. So you're right. But there's some things that always remain the same, in terms of the time it takes to develop. And you just have to bite the bullet and our talent is a good example. If we start programs today, and we're discussing it earlier with Sam, if we start programs today of enabling the tech ecosystem, it is not for now. It is 5 years from now. That's when you'll have this. One of the things I'll tell you we are struggling to do, and we were struggling in Microsoft and Google is the same thing, is how do you get more senior tech talent? That is a problem right now. I'll tell you. If you have been in the tech industry and have managed a team for greater than, let's say, 8 years, you're rare in this ecosystem. And if you applied to any tech company, Google, Microsoft, Meta, AWS, and more, Dropbox, you name them, you will most likely get an interview. That I can guarantee you. You'll get an interview. Because the senior level talent is not there. We don't have it. To the extent of even some of them suggesting we need to import from elsewhere. So it takes time. One of the things I tell a lot of those companies is, look, you have this problem now, but can you imagine 6 years from now when you have all the people I can see here, when you guys have matured or you're already maturing or you're already gotten there? I mean, it won't be a problem. They will definitely be awash with people they can hire. But for right now, this is the problem we have. But it takes time to grow. And that's just, the way life is. Yeah.
Are these talent wars going to intensify in the ecosystem?
Yeah, so I was wondering when you'd get to that. Yeah, so they will. Truth is, they will. But like I said, you remember those 1.3, 1.4, between 1.2 and 1.4 million kids every year? I'm hopeful. If we can get a lot of those KCPE kids to into the tech industry, I mean, then we stop talking about tech wars because we have the resource. And that's what India did very well. But the advantage of India is that they had the government backing. So the government intentionally said, we will invest in technology and train our people intentionally. So they all these universities where you see Sundar came from and Sundar, the CEO of Google, or where Satya came from in India, those were government built and run institutes of technology. And they all came from those universities. The people you see leading those multinationals right now in the US, tech companies, they all came from those places because the government intentionally was deliberate about it. Now, for us, I think in Africa, to be honest, I don't think our story is ever written by the government. It's written by the private sector and by all of us. I mean, we can't wait. So collaborating with a lot of the ecosystem, we need to invest in our talent, and then hopefully, one of you will become the CEO of Google or Meta, and I'm hopeful that's going to happen. Yeah.
All right. We're going to go to the audience for Q&A in another 10 minutes. I still haven't finished, Trudy Jack. So, Jack, can you go a little granular into the skills that big tech companies are looking for in the ecosystem, and how can we harness this?
I mean, it's all. Let me not say big tech specifically. All companies are looking for developers, are looking for good product managers. In my world, that's what I understand. Now, there could be other places that someone here is saying, okay, Jack, they also look for this. I don't know. But in my world, those are the two rare talents that we're always looking for. So if you want to invest in something, if you want to invest in courses, if you want to invest in community, please invest in those areas. You'll always find a space in this world for you. Banks are looking for the same. And again, even I was speaking to one of the CEOs of one of the banks here, and he's struggling to hire a CIO. So he's asking me, should I go to India and hire a CIO and then come here? Maybe there's someone here you can send me your CV. You're a good CIO. I don't mind doing intros. Yeah, but it's a problem right now. But we can solve it, I think.
We're looking at companies like Africa Stocking investing back into the ecosystem to create some of this talent and skill sets, and other companies and code accelerators doing this. But let's get into the heart of the details. What kind of skills are these? You talked about the hiring process at Google is that they look for smart people the way you think. Say more about that, the skills, the competencies that are needed.
Yeah. So look, I mean, to be honest, if you're applying for a job, you already know that you have the skills. What they're looking for beyond the skills is the way you think. A lot. So for example, they'll ask you a question like I remember one of my interviews. Let me think. Clement, what was your interview? What was your question that you asked? What practical question were you asked? Non-coding phase.
Maybe whenever I had a customer.
Yeah.
And I have to talk to the customer, how to ensure the team is able to implement something that
Can we stand near the mic? Is the mic on, Clement? So the audience can hear you?
Yeah. Sorry to pull a suicide on you.
Yeah. So basically, an example was like a time I was able to influence product decision in the team, or something that I felt was needed in the product but was not thought of by the team. How would I influence them to adopt that? That's an example.
Okay. And then the coding. What was your practical coding question?
So one of them was to sort to merge a collection of sorted streams into a single sorted stream.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you see there are two parts to it. So number one is your skill sets, which ideally when you're going in there, you should already know them. And by the way, they're not complex, right? From what he has described. So it's those things you learned in first year. If you went to university, computer science, if you didn't, it's you see that first chapter you read in a book. Then you skip over. You say, this is rubbish. Let me go to the next one. That's the one they ask. That one. Even at my level, that's the first question they ask you. For example, one of the questions I was asked when I was joining Microsoft is about hash maps. If you understand hash maps, and why is it such a big deal they didn't necessarily ask me to implement it, but they ask you that kind of question. And why is it a big deal? And why do you think it's not going to exist in quantum computing? I had no idea. but they appreciate the way you think. And then another question I remember I was asked is, and it was so funny because we just launched the toll station, the expressway. So the question I was asked is how do you build a system that will collect automatically toll fees from vehicles? Now, if you listen to that question, you have to think to yourself, it's a very simple question to answer. I mean, I will go and tell M-Pesa open a wallet, and then I put a pay bill. No, but they want you to say, I mean, ask them questions like, is this toll road going to be used by vehicles or cyclists or lorries or trucks? Is there going to be differential pricing off-peak, on-peak hours? They like that you're asking clarifying questions, as they call it, because you're thinking through the solution and you're thinking beyond just though you get a bottle of water and you put in water and you say this is alpine water. They want to think why is it that way? And so that sort of analytical thinking is what you need to cultivate if you don't have it, or if you have it, keep going. You're in the right track. So even in your meetings at AIT or wherever, if your boss tells you something, don't argue back. What I'm saying is ask clarifying questions. Yeah. I don't want you to lose your job. Yeah.
Very interesting. And we are still going to build on that thread. Ask clarifying questions, critical thinking, dig in deeper. Do we have a reading culture in Africa, in Kenya as a whole?
Well, we used to have one in primary and high school. See, we all did set books. And we got examined on
Well, we have a cram culture.
Yeah, true. Well, that's also true. Yeah, but I don't know if how many of us read books thereafter. How many people read one book a year? Okay. How many read 2 books a year? Okay.
How many read at all?
Read above 5 books a year? Oh wow, this is impressive. So we kind of do, I think. Beyond 5 books a year, it's the culture there.
Jack, what do you enjoy reading? Which book in particular?
So I have tons of books. I prefer the Kindle books because we don't have good. The bookshops here are quite expensive. So what am I reading right now? Let me see. So I have a Kindle. I don't read them on this because it's too small and I'm getting kind of older. So
what phone is that?
It's a Samsung.
Not a Pixel?
You see, I knew you were gonna say that. I knew. Hey, so I finished last week. I finished AI Superpowers. Has anyone read that book? AI Superpowers. AI Superpowers by so whoever asks the best question in this forum, I will send you a physical copy of that book.
What is the best question?
So I don't know. We'll vote. We'll vote. But so AI Superpowers is a really great book because it talks about how China developed in their tech industry. And those of you who are running startups or think you're running a startup, please read this book. Or you're thinking about a business idea, please read this book. If you can't read the whole book, then read chapter 2. Only chapter 2. And you will see the way it's called AI Superpowers by Kai-Fu Lee. So if you Google it.
Kai-Fu Lee. If you are in the AI space,
not necessarily. The guy.
No.
Oh, you know him. Yeah, he's popular.
If you're in the AI space, you had better know Kai-Fu Lee.
Yeah.
If you don't,
gal,
man, whoever, you don't know your trade.
So it's such an interesting story. You know the way these Chinese businessmen we see here, and we think they're so aggressive. They're actually aggressive because their home market is super aggressive. I mean, there's one place, I don't want to spoil the book for you, and I'm not a salesman for him, but there's one place he was talking about how the guy who did something called Meituan, which is the equivalent of Groupon, was competing with the guys of Tencent. And the guys of Tencent were getting upset that he was actually winning a little bit of market share more than him. So they actually sent cops to his office. He discovered that the cops were going to his office. He flew all the way to Hong Kong to chill out, to figure out what his next move is. And those guys are really gangster, the way they do their business. So that's why I can understand also when they come here, they're quite aggressive because their home market is equally aggressive. But yeah, read chapter 2. It's quite interesting. If you don't want to read the whole book, I like the last chapters because it also talks about what I said about trade-offs, in life. So he was diagnosed with cancer, and so at some point, but he's in remission now, and he was just talking about the things that were important to him, and why you should take some things important in life. So yeah, read it if you can. So I've read that and a few others, but yeah, that's the interesting one this year. I think I've read. I also read a lot of Star Wars. So
Okay, interesting. What's the name of the longest book you've read?
I don't know. I mean, I've never kept tabs. You see, the problem with Kindle, it doesn't necessarily tell you the pages. It just tells you like where you are on that bar. So I'm not sure what's the longest I've read.
Shortest?
I think one of the shortest is I know that Range. Range I think is the shortest.
Range, right?
Yeah, it's very short.
I would recommend Range for generalists in the space. It's a really good book to read. On average, how long does it take you to read a book?
Oh, it depends. It depends. I try to leave half an hour every day. I try. Some days I'm lucky, it goes to an hour, but most times half an hour. I try. I really do. And then I also download a lot of audiobooks, although that's not the same. But in traffic especially, because sometimes you just want to listen to something, and yeah. So audiobooks also, I like audiobooks. But the audiobooks are really cool. They're like movies now. It's not like someone is reading. Like, do you remember? Sam and I can identify in Conrad. You remember Hello Children? It's not like that. It's not just one person reading. They actually have sound effects and everything. So in your mind, you actually picture it. So you build it. So it's really cool.
All right. As we come to a close of this part, before we go to Q&A, Jack, what is your fondest dream for the ICT sector in Kenya, and how do we get there as a people?
Yeah. So first of all, I'll tell you what I hope is that one day there'll be someone amongst you who will be leading a product group in Google, Microsoft, somewhere. Leading, not taking orders from someone, leading. Okay? And for those of literally leading. And you have people in Israel, India, Japan, the US reporting to you. That's for me when I been in Microsoft and Google, that's what I hope will happen. And I think to some extent it's happening already. There's some really good people who are already starting to build waves in that place. And then the second thing is really for us to develop this talent here, that it's world class. That when we talk about tech talent, someone says, I need to go to Nairobi or to Kenya to get this tech talent, man. That's like there, we always say, man, can we get some Indian developers? It'd be nice for someone to say, can we get some Kenyan developers here? That'd be awesome. And that's what I hope we can do.
How do we get there as a people?
I mean, it's everyone. It's all of us. I mean, we're just talking about it with this gentleman here, about how as an ecosystem, it can't be a Google problem or a Microsoft problem. It's everyone, It's an everyone problem, and we all have to pitch in. Safaricom, Equity, AIT, everyone has to be able to pitch in singly and together and move the ecosystem forward.
There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Jack Ngare on one-on-one with me, Jessica Colasso. Check out my website. It's me, jessicacolasso.com, for my music NFT. Of course, I'm going to promote myself. All right, we go to the Q&A session, and we'll start on my right-hand side.
Man.
We have Conrad right here. Please step up.
Conrad, and I paid you not to ask questions.
Bad luck. Mine is a very simple question.
Yeah.
My name is Conrad. I'm a friend of Jack. I've known you a long time.
Yeah.
We've heard a lot about your successes, your career, but I'm curious about any one thing you felt that was a mistake that if you could go back, you would change professionally, I mean.
Oh gosh, I tell you what, Conrad, that's a great question. Let me tell you first of all, I have failed many times. Do you know the time when you actually sit down and say, I swear to God, I'm going to be fired today? And specifically when I was working for, there's a time I was in BT and I actually crashed their DNS servers. I was so sure that day. You're a 20-something-year-old and you've crashed one of the biggest telcos in the UK. They are DNS servers. Why? Because you thought you're so smart and you can do something a bit more optimized, and then you forget that there's so many dependencies associated with what you've just done, and so everything came down. And when when the other engineers walk in, and then you own up, no one talks to you for like a whole week because everyone had to mess up there. It was a long holiday. Everyone had to come back. Guys had booked holidays. I don't know, in France. I don't know where. And they're looking at you and they're like, seriously, man. And back then, we didn't have these remote things. You had to show up in the office. Oh man, that was really tough. So honestly, I have tons of them. I can write a book about all my failures. There's one product, I won't say which one, when I was in equity. I sold it to the board, the group board. Everyone thought it was brilliant. When we released it, I think we only got like 5 downloads. And you're like, come on, man. I mean, what's wrong? This is a brilliant product. In fact, no. And those 5 downloads, I'm sure they are fraudsters. You're like, and so the next meeting, and so you're going for a board meeting. The next one, Hey. You try telling them other stories, that slide for that particular product, you skip through it really fast. You don't talk about it. Then someone says, "Oh no, just go back." And you go back, and then you have to eat humble pie. Like, look, I told you guys that this is gonna be a success, but to be honest, I miscalculated, and I didn't think it would not do very well. And look, you have. That also taught me something, Conrad. One of the things it taught me was that, number one, always own up and say you can do better. You that night you'll sleep a lot better. Then what is typically the case is you try and look for a scapegoat to crucify. So I could have easily have blamed my product managers, my sales managers, any one of them. I could blame them and say they're the ones who do not know how to implement this thing, and then I crucify them. But the truth is, you're honest with yourself and you say, dude, you miscalculated. And that night, after you say it, people will appreciate it. Sometimes there's a price to pay because then people doubt you after that. I'm telling you, it's not as good as I try to make it seem. After that, every single product I came up with, it had to go through some process. Because now, people are kind of like, okay, dude, you messed up. So they don't trust you as much, which is okay. Then the next one you do will come out okay. And then they'll go back to, people are very fickle. So they'll say, oh, this guy's a star. And then you're back again. So you have to do that. I mean, those of you who follow, like now, I'm surprised there's a team that's top of the table. I mean, they shouldn't be there though. But if you appreciate their journey, I mean, I don't support them, but you appreciate their journey. They have done a lot of missteps and they are where they are. So who are you not to be fallible? But just be honest. I mean, that's one advice I can give you. If you mess up, be honest with yourself first. Yeah.
Please come up to the mic if you have a question.
Yes. Good evening. My question was at a personal level. How did you know that?
Please introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. My name is Bill.
What do you do?
I'm just fresh into the industry. I'm an engineer here. So my question is, on a personal level, how did you know that Kenya was the right place for you? And also on an maybe for, as you've said, these companies that had 7 years to start, like M-Pesa and Equity, a lot of maybe other startups may not have the privilege of waiting out such long periods of time for profit to start coming, and so does it mean that for them their solutions, like, given how unforgiving it is, should they wait out this phase of you people building the ecosystem for them to start, or is it possible to take this chance and
Yeah. So why Kenya? I mean, obviously, when you look, for me, it was a no-brainer. I mean, when you look at, and also for a lot of these companies, it's a no-brainer because if you look at the powerhouses in Africa, you're talking about Egypt in the north, You're talking about Nigeria in the west. You're talking about Kenya in the east and South Africa in the south. Now, obviously, there's certain infrastructural challenges you have to do in any of these countries. But Kenya is a logical choice for us. I mean, and for me, because I think the talent exists. It's easier to attract anyone from across the world to come and work in Nairobi here. So it was a logic, and it's not me even who made that decision. By the way, it's they're the ones who made those decisions. They said this is an easier place for us to get in, and then we understand the market because also I'm not saying that at some point they will not go to Nigeria. I mean to Rwanda, to Uganda, to Tanzania. They will, but it's always you always need a base of operations, and then you move forward. So for me, that's also the same thing. The base of operations initially will be Kenya, and then you spread off to the rest of the other countries. And then to your question about startups, it's a very good question. I think, it's a hard thing. I think the best person to answer this is probably someone who has done it like Sam. I mean, Sam, do you have a comment on that? I mean, and the question is how do you, because it takes time to build a company, right? Anything, talent, company, whatever. What if these companies and businesses do not have the capital to persevere these many years when they're not making money? And should they just give up and close shop, or what has been your experience? Because also I know you guys have gone through this journey before, and I think I wouldn't, and even Conrad as well. I think you guys are more in a better place to answer than I am.
Yeah, I think you have to respect the market. If the market is telling you it's not working, there is no need to stick to it. Like with us, we tried maybe 5-10 different products before we landed on the SMS APIs. So SMS APIs were not what we were going to sell, but that's what the market told us that it's needed at that time. Then don't take the failure of a business to be your personal failure. Just because a business has failed does not mean you failed as a human being. So don't get attached to an idea, don't get attached to something because you feel like if I tell my friends this thing fails and they think I'm a failure. That's their problem, that's not your problem. So I think quickly moving on is actually one of those virtues that you can just jump on, especially as a startup. With Safaricom, yes, the government is behind them. With you, your shillings are behind you. So. That's what I would say about that.
Yeah. I think also the other thing people have to appreciate is that you can step the mic. So is also, having worked a lot with entrepreneurs, sometimes I think they got a lot of flack of how abrasive they can be because, they have had to make a lot of hard choices. My boss was an entrepreneur. So I can imagine why he's abrasive is because he had to cut down a lot of expenses, had to make a lot of hard choices. And even worse still, the best people who you're relying on one day come and tell you they have to leave. So I think we don't give enough credit to our entrepreneurs, especially the ones who fail. I think those are the people who I respect a lot because it takes a lot to come out of that. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No worries. Hi, I'm Anne Salim. I work as a product manager. Building the global team here in Kenya. Are you also focusing on customizing the global solutions to Africa market? Or what's the perspective you take as a leader in this industry doing that?
Yeah. So for example, if you look at specifically Google, they're actually having jobs right now to customize search and Android, and soon they're going to be releasing a lot more services using vernacular languages in Africa. So don't be surprised one day you see Android in Kamba. I know, right? Yeah, I mean, don't be surprised because that's where it's going. And a lot of I know there's this project that I was working on that was training what we call natural language processing. And so Africa has 2,000 languages. How do you get them all into our AI service so that when you're typing on Google Docs, if you type Nyaje, it should be able to tell you that's not the spelling of Nyaje. It's actually like this. So there are a lot of those interesting projects that are coming up right now. Yeah. Yes, sir.
Can you? Geez. I'll have to work on this. I think I'm there now. On the optimal space. Sure. Hi, I'm Jason Ketman. I'm a venture capitalist helping various African startups within the region. I think that we share a lot of the same visions, that there's a very large and robust talent pool here that, given the right opportunities, that they could do a lot to really help the area. What's been interesting to me, and I was curious about your opinion on, coming from an outside perspective, is that some of these companies are doing really amazing things. And one in particular, when we look at the business operations, the bottom line of the impact of the business was about 10x in terms of, the impact to the business. And despite that, we're finding some resistance in adapting the technology. And I think it's due to skepticism and a lack of believability within the market. We wrote a case study. We, then use the reference. We say you can call him anytime. He'll validate that the numbers are accurate, right? And we're still encountering resistance. So we found some paths to alleviate that. But I would be very curious from your perspective, the challenges with technology adaptation and the strategies or ideas which may limit the resistance that comes with those ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I can feel the pain of that startup, and just like I gave the example of M-Pesa that took 7 years, even now that it's everywhere, clearly there is some inertia and friction that to gain scale of any company, and I've seen it across even from the companies we fund as Google and Microsoft, and my days at Equity. The agency banking that we talk about a lot that only picked up within 6 years. So and you can clearly see, at least if you look at analysis of this market, you have to have staying power of at least a minimum of 6 years, if you ask me. And it's knocking on doors. You keep going. A lot of startups, I think, have a promise positive EBITDA in year 3. Conrad, did you do that? A lot of them do that, and I've seen tons of decks, and now even with my role at Google, I see tons of them. And for sure there will not be positive EBITDA within year 3. It'll take you 5 years minimum to crack this market, especially if you're going to be removing an incumbent process. And here, not an incumbent player, an incumbent process that people are already used to. And so that takes some time. And so the VC funds, I'd say that a minimum of 5 years to get the technology adopted would be a more reasonable time frame. And that's at the Kenyan market. Now, if you go to other markets outside Kenya, if you're talking about Tanzania, Uganda, that even increases even more. And I've seen like one company that we funded in Rwanda has been at it for 8 years. And their user base is less than 1,000. And they promised 80,000. So you have those challenges that exist. Having said that, an easier route that I've seen a lot of companies take is partnering with existing organizations that already have the scale. So, for example, if I'm gonna do like this buy now pay later service, I will partner with Safaricom and Equity Bank. Then I will get the scale, rather than me go direct to the customers and try and organically acquire them. And that has been my observation.
Excellent. Thank you.
Hello everyone. Yeah. My name is Collins, a student, computer science student. I have a question. Have you ever thought of building a startup, and what was it like?
So I have. I've funded a few startups. I don't think I have the mettle of this gentleman here. This is a special breed, eh? But I have invested in a few startups, to be honest. Just simply because some of them I actually don't even think they will make money, but I like the founders, and yeah, sometimes you have to believe in some people. And so I didn't invest in yours, Clement, because I didn't like it. I'm just kidding. Yeah, but I haven't. But maybe one day I will. Do you have an idea? We can partner. I can be your co-founder. Okay, I'm just kidding. Okay, cool. Right.
Okay, so my name is Emmanuel Blyton. I'm a student at Strathmore University, studying marketing and having an interest in IT. So definitely to the audience, I'm a free agent. In case you need a marketer, holler at me, please. I'm sure I can be of benefit to you. So the main question I'm going to ask is around patience, isn't it? Because one of the questions that was raised was that Generation Z doesn't have patience, isn't it? And that's the truth, because right now, as I'm standing here, I'm thinking of an idea to get that bag. That's the legit thing, isn't it? But what is a recipe to, if you're talking about patience, could you give us like Generation Z? Because we've heard this and it's becoming like an insult to us that we don't have patience, isn't it? And we kind of feel like, what is the recipe to this patience? Because we also want to feel like we want to belong to the society, you see. But with the aspect of being told that you're not patient, wait for your turn. But I have the skills, so when is my turn coming? Yeah.
You're so right. Stereotyping a bunch of people is not really the best way of going through things. I think everyone's an individual, and I agree with you. It's wrong for us to stereotype. When us older folks were younger like you know what they used to say? You're the future leaders. Like, if the future is not today, when is it? So again, it's a tendency of the existing people to kick the can down the street and say your opportunity will come next year or the year after, etc. And you're right to be impatient, by the way. I'm all for being impatient. What I mean is, when we say about patience, it's putting the work and seeing the results over time. And sometimes you could be lucky that it actually happens, like you're an overnight success. It can happen. I don't mean to say that it can't happen. I mean, someone like, for example, Facebook, it's a good example. They, in many standards, were an overnight success. Okay, forget the parts where he took some time to grow it. But when he came out of university, I mean, it caught fire really fast. So it is possible that you can be an overnight success. But the only thing is that if you look at a graph, where the normal distribution graph, right? So you have people who are the majority here, who it takes time. Then you have some outliers on both sides. Some it takes extremely long time, some it takes extremely short time. But all you're saying is that the majority of people will probably take some time, an average amount of time to be successful. And so that's pretty much what I'd say for you. And well done for being marketing. If you ask me, in marketing, I spoke to Professor Ogutu, and I told him that he needs to teach more of Google AdWords and Facebook boosting of posts to you marketing students. I've done a couple of interviews and from a lot of universities, not just Strathmore alone. But if I ask them, can you help startup X boost AdWords and make a post go viral on Twitter? They just don't have the basics of it. So if you're in a bias of IT, you're in the right place. Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let the lady go. Let's have a lady.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Akula. I am a project manager. So I have 3 questions for you. They could be related. So one, the people that have been hired by big tech like Microsoft and Google, where you worked before, the Kenyans, how do I say this? Do they match up to like the non-Kenyans? Because from, I think what I've heard, there's this comparison, like, so the non-Kenyans are the standard. Of course, like, the countries, the Americas, of course, they're coming here. So is that like the measure of how we are looking at talent here? Is that a good way to look at it? The second thing, probably related, so I guess the general feel here for this question is, what part does culture have to play in this talent, I guess, coming up from the continent? The second thing is, how do you become the best in a generalist culture? So I have had an opportunity to work in Germany for a bit, and they are very highly specialized. Like, you don't just find people, in our country, I think you'd be working in a startup and you're doing 10 different things, and you have skills at everything. So you grow in breadth, but not in depth. So how do you become like the best in a very generalist culture? And then finally, do you think the government is doing enough to support the potential of this ecosystem?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, those are great questions. Okay. So the first question you ask around, benchmarking Kenyans versus non-Kenyans, I don't think it really is that. I think, again, it's just one of those labels we put when we're hiring, or when, at least when you're trying to say. So it's a label. Let's call it that. So we look at an industry or a country like India and the US, and where computer science is not a new field. I mean, the US has been doing computer science since the 20s. They have, from all those machines you learned in first year about the Babbage machine, etc., going onwards to the mechanical devices, to all the way to the electronic devices. So there's a lot of generational knowledge that has been passed down, and can-do attitude that, hey, my uncle actually used to work for IBM back in the 60s and he came up with this. And so you feel like you're okay. Now I can also do it. I can, there's that believability. There's a reason why we are really good at marathon. Not that we're not skilled, but we are very skilled. But we have psych as Kenyans. We know when we go for a marathon, there's nothing else we are winning. We're winning this thing. So that mentality we already have, we win it. It's not that other countries are not equally as good. Maybe they are, but we have that mentality that we're going to win it. I should tell you guys a funny story about marathons, by the way. Can I say for 2 minutes a story about marathons? So when I was in Boston, I went for this marathon. Not the Boston Marathon, it's for the university. And I wore my Kenya t-shirt. Okay. Yeah. Mistake number one. So I check in. And the next thing I know, the organizers are already pushing me to the one lady came and took me and said, "Excuse me, sir, come. So she took me to the front. So I'm like, I didn't know it was a big deal. So then the next thing I see, the cameraman keeps going and then he comes back to me. He's like this. And I'm dumb, so I can't really see that he's actually focusing more on the Kenya and then the whole outfit that I had for Kenya. So this guy knew this guy is gonna win this thing, and back then I was kind of skinny. So they knew this guy is gonna win this thing. So then it hit me. Wait a minute, and then I'm seeing the guys next to me are looking at me, and they're doing their warm ups. They keep looking at me. I was just standing there, like, okay, so. Gun goes. So now, before that, I figured out now the reason why. It's because of the Kenya t-shirt. So I keep telling the camera guy, like, go away, and I want to kind of sneak out. And so I actually did sneak to the second row. And the lady came again and took me to the front row. So the gun goes, oh man. First kilometer, I put everything into it. I put like I stepped on the gas. I just went, and so I was not doing too badly. But after a while, when you put too much into it, you get tired, right? So second kilometer, I'm seeing people passing. Third kilometer, even guys who just don't look fit were passing me as well. And I remember the cameraman. He was sitting at the back of a motorcycle. And he just looked at me, he just did. And then he went, Oh man, I was like, I felt so embarrassed. I was like, how do I find a way out of here? Is there a Starbucks I can just enter in and pretend I was just sitting here all the whole time? Yeah, anyway, embarrassing story. But anyway, to answer your question, yeah, so there's that mentality that you have that you can do. And so that's why you find that when you benchmark with those places, because we know that they have had a history of doing really amazing engineering work. And so we kind of benchmark them as Kenyans, how are we doing vis-a-vis those people? It's kind of like just a label thing that we do for comparison. It's not really, it doesn't mean that a Kenyan engineer here is any less qualified or less skilled than someone sitting in Silicon Valley or in India, Chennai, or in China. It doesn't mean that at all. It's just something that we put as something that we need to become better as. The second question you asked was around so the book we just described with Jessica about range actually talks about that, and it's something that even developed countries struggle with, that you have so many people who are specialists and you don't have people who have end-to-end view of things. So from a global perspective, it actually is a discussion that's going on. Do we need more specialists, or do we need people who understand more things across board? And there's no right answer. I think there are certain things. For example, the guy who's going to, let's say, who's going to do surgery like I did a few months ago on my shoulder. He's a specialist for shoulders. Now, will I go to a guy who's just generally a surgeon, or a guy who knows shoulders? Then you prefer that. So, I think it's a very subjective question. I don't have an answer one way or another. Do we need more engineers who are specialists, let's say, in building AI solutions and TensorFlow and PyTorch, etc.? Yes, we do. And they only understand that. Because if we get stuck, we want to call those guys to come and sort us out. But all companies would probably need someone who understands things a little bit more and then drilled in on specialists. And doctors are the same way. And lawyers are the same way. You have constitutional lawyers right now who are specialists in constitutional law. But if you want a guy to bail you out of prison when you get caught drunk, Clement, don't call a constitutional lawyer. Just call a normal guy. So that's what I think. So I don't know. I haven't answered your question, but I see pros and cons on both sides. Having a market skew towards generalists and having a market skew to specialists. I see pros and cons on both sides. You asked me the third question, which was government. Okay, so that's a great question. So I think they need to do more. Simple answer. They absolutely need to do a lot more. They have made progress, but for a developing country, we need more practical skills and marketable skills. It doesn't help to open a course for the sake of opening a course because you want to meet your quota of absorbing students into your university. With every single course, there has to be a cost that's associated with it. Like the way, I think the ones they got right was especially in things like medicine and engineering. But even then, it's kind of gone down. Then when you're going to teach people computer science, for example, which I understand, you must understand that you need computers. You need to buy them, subscriptions to cloud services. You need to get the relevant materials for them to use it because this is university, all right? You're not doing high school where you can be all over the place. You have to invest more. And the courses that are not marketable, shut them down immediately. And I think that's what the reforms that are happening right now, from what I've heard, are going into. An interesting story in the UK, universities get funding from the government based out of the number of students who get jobs and start their businesses. So if you churn out people who are not accepted by the market, then I'm sorry, we're not going to fund you. You need to do better. And so there's always this competition of becoming better. And I think we need to do a lot more of that. And I personally, I'm not one to speak about this, but I think we need more people who are biased towards building than we are towards things like, and I'm not saying it's bad. Please don't write Jack said bad things about people who do humanities. Please do humanities. But we need more builders in this country. I mean, we can't have dams and roads and bridges being built necessarily, and we don't learn how to do them ourselves. At some point, we need to, right? I mean, I don't think anyone disagrees about that. So we just need more builders than we do, humanities, I think. Please don't tweet that.
All right, we'll have another 10 minutes of Q&A, and then I'll invite Africa's chief storyteller, Teddy Warrior, here to introduce another guest from Google. But please come up.
Hello, Jack.
Hey.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mui Nehikari. I'm a product lead at Kanza Finance. I wanted to ask, from your perspective as working with Google Cloud, what do you think about decentralized storage systems such as IPFS, and how long do you think it would take for the market to appreciate that fully?
Okay,
thank you.
So if you don't mind, can you give a little bit background about decentralized so that everyone is on the same? Yeah.
Okay, so like decentralized storage is talking about you see this the way you have Google Cloud. It's a little bit decentralized, but it's mostly centralized at the Google database houses, Correct. But decentralized storage means you have millions of nodes across the world storing the same information, and the retrieval process is a lot cheaper.
Right.
So I just want to know if there's any foreseeable headway for that to make way into the market.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that you asked that question. One of the projects I worked on last in Microsoft was how do you make use of not necessarily storage, but more of processing power? Because right now, all of us are sitting here, right? Your laptop or your computer, wherever it is probably idling right now. I suspect it's not doing anything right now. What if we could use that processing power and you get some sort of credits or get paid whenever each time we use your machines? And so that's a decentralized way. What he's talking now, the next version, which is now the actual storage. We use maybe not necessarily your laptop storage device, but perhaps certain devices sitting in certain data centers across the world, and they all have a piece of the information, and then they are put back together when you request for it. So you can imagine if we had a file and it's stored in AIT and it's stored down the road, rather than it going all the way to Google Cloud in US Central, it's sitting right next to you here. And And so, there are two thoughts I have about that. Number one is that the thought process behind it is what has powered a lot of this decentralized computing that has happened. And it's just natural that it's going to go to storage as well at some point. But the question then becomes is, what are the impediments or constraints you'll have to work under? Number one is, like Bitcoin and all the others that have been mined across the world is cost of power, cost of storage, cost of compute. Who's willing to take on that responsibility? And number three is what kind of assurances do you provide the owners of that information that it's actually, bona fide, legit, etc. And of course, there's ways of doing that. But those are concerns across. And then who are the people who are qualified to do that and who are not? So, for example, would you accept that someone sitting in the Ministry of Transport can actually use this service to store government documents across because of sovereignty, data privacy, etc.? Those are the things of the new age that we have to just grapple with. But as a technology, as a overall, I think it's just natural progression. It's going to happen. I mean, the question is, at what scale will it happen? That's the thing.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi, so Dorcas. I have a question to you on pivoting and imposter syndrome. So you particularly mentioned that if you are in a field and you feel like maybe you should do a pivoting to tech or something like that, how do you deal with how do you deal with imposter syndrome, for example? Because I did some pivoting and maybe did something with software engineering, and then you go to maybe you do a job or somewhere you like, maybe for example I went and maybe I worked at ADC and then I meet someone like Clement who's really good, and then like you're like, okay, how do you deal with such things? Because I actually met Clement and he was asking hard questions.
Clement, you see the bad things you do, they always come to haunt you. No, look, when I said imposter syndrome is a way for you to become better. Someone please help her. So it should be a way for you to become a lot better at what you do. I mean, take it positively. I mean, the questions he asked you, I'm sure you reflected back on them and said how you can improve on them. So you can do that. Look, I always use this analogy. There's this guy who we were hiring at Microsoft, and you may know him, who thought he was the best. I met him at one of these forums. He came and saw me, and then he said, "Jack, I know this technology really well. I'm a kick-ass developer. I'm this," and I said, "Awesome. Let's set up an interview for you." And so we set up an interview for him, and I the way he described what he can do, it was partly my fault. I should have done a little bit more questions. I thought he would be actually a senior level engineer. I didn't think he was supposed to enter as an entry level engineer, even though he was very young. He was I think he was like 20, 24 maybe. So I said, this guy, the way he described himself, must be a senior engineer. Just that he's young, so it's okay. Let him go. So he went for senior engineer role, and man, that interview, it really butchered him. I mean, I was reading the notes. I didn't myself attend it, but I read the notes, and man, he really got it. And so I called him, and I said, "How did the interview go?" "Oh, perfect. They love me, man." Manome ni effort. So he was like, "They loved me. I think I should expect the offer letter, in a week's time." So I was like, "Dude, you better come and see me." I had office hours on Thursdays, so I told him, "You come and see me on Thursday. I have office hours." So he came to see me, and I told him, "Dude, they're not gonna send you an offer letter." That's the first thing. The next thing is that, and he could see you're shocked. I was like, no. I mean, look, it was my fault mostly, but do you understand the questions they asked? "Yeah," and I asked them. I said, no, did you understand the questions they asked? And we went through each question and asked him, "Answer me back." And then he answers, and I said, "No, that's not the question they asked you. You're answering the question that they didn't ask you. This is what they meant." And I could see he was like, okay. And it's some of these experiences you go through, like I said, imposter syndrome, missing an interview, also should be building blocks towards you getting something else in the future. And keep trying. I mean, but learn. The most important thing is that you learn from what came out of it. Don't be delusional. Always learn. And you'll be fine. You'll be fine. We always use this word in the tech industry. Those of you who went to schools, public schools or whatever schools you went to, there's this guy who's probably the best footballer or the best runner in your school. Then when he went to nationals, what happened to him? Huh? You guys stop cheering for the guy. You're like, Maze. So there's always going to be someone better than you. But the idea is to learn and do better all the time. So please go apply again. Leave Clemo alone. Just apply. Cool.
Jack, you mentioned something about don't be delusional. Sometimes we as human beings experience this. And have you experienced it?
Of course.
And how do you get out of it? You normally call it delusions of grandiose.
Yeah. No, I mean, sometimes you're just stuck in what you know, and sometimes it's not bad, right? I mean, if you look at the people who achieved a lot in life, if you read the book by Steve Jobs, I mean, you call that guy delusional, for real. But out of his 10 delusions, I think one worked. Yeah. One worked. So it's okay to be sometimes delusional. Just don't be overly delusional over all the 10 things and you insist that all those 10 things must work. One of your delusions will work. But at the same time, also be humble enough to accept that they don't, like I think some said, the market will tell you and your interviewer will tell you and someone else will tell you. And you also have to make a choice. Do I continue my delusion or do I actually stop and decide now that I can actually do something else? But it's okay sometimes to be delusional about something. I mean, we're just talking with Sam because he grew up in the village like me, and we're like, sometimes you look and you think to yourself, you're working for Microsoft or Google, and you're like, hey, was it those days I used to push that thing? Would I have ever thought you'd have reached at this level? You'd have been like, no, because you always thought you're gonna own a what do you call it? A canter that's gonna bring cabbages to Nairobi. That was a joke. Laugh. Cool. Cool. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
The game you mentioned, tire.
Yeah.
It's just come to my mind. It's actually a tire, and then you get 2 sticks.
Yeah.
And you're pushing it as a kid.
Yeah.
Huh? Me? Oh, I never did that, but I saw kids doing that, and I was like, oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, she saw us doing it.
I was like, what are these kids doing? But anyway, yes, it is part of our African culture. So let's embrace it. Being humble, coming from our roots. Let's not forget that. Let's have at least 3 more questions and then we'll wrap it up. And I'll invite Teddy Warrior, Africa's Talking's chief storyteller.
Good evening. I think sometimes as direct as some things may seem, sometimes common sense isn't as common. So what are some steps or measures that someone can take to prepare, say, for example, for a pitching or for an interview or as they want to go into a certain space career-wise? What are some things they can say, okay, for example, in composition writing, you need to have the intro, the body, and then the ending paragraph. What are some guiding points that are always there that we need to make sure we meet? And then, so 3 questions. That's the first. The second is, what does an outlier look like in Kenya, in Africa, and globally in the tech space? And what are this is the third question, what are some things that are tried and true in a formula that people can implement and work on to get to that level?
Okay, so I can take the first one.
What is her name? What does she do?
Yeah, sure, sorry.
My name is Mona Abebe. I am currently a student and working as an apprentice. I am very interested in the tech and fintech space and community. I had a fintech startup a couple of years ago. So now it's trying to reassess, rebuild, and then push forward, seeing how to best help the Kenyan space and market.
Thanks, Mona. Jack, before you answer that question, I just have a bit of some operational admin announcement. The owner of KCQ989Q, is that you, Jack?
Yeah, that's me.
Can somebody move the car for you? All right. Thanks for the car, Jack.
You're welcome.
All right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that's embarrassing. But anyway, so
take your car for a spin.
The question you asked around, just do your homework for a pitch deck or for a so they have to have a valid driver's license. Okay. No. Yeah, so my heart is beating right now. So anyway, you have to just do your homework, and then don't underestimate the power of a community. So if you're in the fintech space, you're going for a pitch, you're going to the PE fund guys, or the fund managers, always reach out to the community and figure out who else has done work or has pitched with them. So then you do your homework. I mean, of what the things they look out for, what are the things they like, even including interviews. Reach out to Clement on if you're doing one for Microsoft, and ask him what kind of questions, how do they do it, watch YouTube videos, some of them are there. So just do your homework. That's all. I mean, there's no one. I can't tell you like there's an intro and this and this and this, because I mean sometimes they really are not that structured. But if you find out from 6 different people, for example, they'll give you'll find some commonality of how they do their thing, and so that's the best way of doing it. And then the last thing, when you go for your pitch or for your interview, relax. Relax. And it's a marathon, it's never a sprint. So it doesn't mean that you answered question 1 wrong, the whole exam is marked as 0. That's not the case. In fact, you could actually answer a lot of the questions wrong and still get the job. So never panic. Always just relax. I see a lot of guys in interviews, man, they're so tense. I mean, you just relax. It's not that. And then if you don't make it the first time, I think after a couple of I think a month or 2, you're always allowed to apply back again. So just always just relax. Don't be too tensed up about it. And do your homework. Yeah. And then the second thing you asked was around an outlier. Okay, so it's all specific to the industry. I mean, an outlier in my books has 2 things. At least when I look at outliers, number 1, they have the skill sets, and number 2, they have a brilliant attitude. Those are outliers. If you have both, that you're willing to collaborate with other people, you're willing to admit that when you make a mistake, you're willing to seek advice when you need to, and you reach out to others and help others. Those are outliers for me. And those are the people who, in my books, get a lot more rewards than, just being a great coder, for example. You have to show that you have the right attitude as well and the right value system. So those are outliers for me. The last question was answered? Okay, cool. Right. You're welcome.
Titus.
Speaking to the mic.
Titus.
Yeah. I hope I'm clear. My name is Titus. I am an ICT student at the Kiambu Institute of Science and Technology by day, and a front-end developer at night. What is one product that you have ever built or been part of the production team and you felt you are not really celebrated, or we didn't get to know that Jack was involved in building this product? And the second question, how long will it take Google to adapt to the Web3 web architecture?
Okay. So those are heavy hitting questions. So the first one is, what's the one thing that I feel I wasn't given enough credit for? I think when you're a junior engineer, there are lots of interesting things you do, but you never get the the credit for. So there are many of them. I can't think of any. Which is the one that pissed me off the most? Let me see. Back when I was younger. Okay. So I contributed to the library for Java Card. You know Java Card? So yeah. So I did that many years ago, and the guy who actually posted the commit was my boss. So I was so pissed off because now it's used in. And so those of you who don't know Java Card, you know what powers your SIM card right now? And bank, that chip you see there, most likely it's running Java Card. The Safaricom SIM cards are running Java Card as their applet for M-Pesa and a lot more. So back then we didn't even know that was what it's going to be used for. It was just something that we were doing as a POC and we found it interesting. So the guy who actually did the commit was my boss. And so and everyone was like, wow, this is so awesome. Okay, now the service is deprecated, so good for him. But yeah, I think that was one of the things that pissed me off the most, especially when I came back home and I found out that everyone uses it. I was like, oh man, if my name was there, I've been telling guys, hey, look, my name is here. But yeah, anyway, it is what it is. The second question was, remind me. Oh, Web3.
Yeah, Web3.
Okay, so we have started. It's. I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it, but I think a lot of tech companies. Let me speak broadly because I may not necessarily answer you directly on that. But a lot of tech companies have started task forces to actually sort of not only upgrade their infrastructure and their way of doing things to Web3, but also provide the necessary tools for those who are building on Web3 to be able to leverage our capabilities. So if you talk about GCP Cloud, having a whole offering for Web3, etc. So I think it's a journey right now, and you can imagine to pivot, or no, let me call it, it's not a pivot, to actually move towards Web3 is a journey that takes a number of years, and a lot of engineering effort. So I think that's something that probably I'm sure if you Google, there's probably some white paper written by someone who's talking about how we are moving towards Web3. I don't know have it right, but if I find it, I can probably forward it to Jessica and she can share it with you. Yeah.
One last question from the audience. Interact with Jack later. Let him.
Okay, sure.
Comment later. Come up. Come.
So I can't be an MC.
Good evening once again.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Tom. I work in sales and marketing, and I have a startup. So one of the things I've struggled with the startup is creating a team. I had a startup which failed because the team I had at that time, they kind of got, let me say, quote unquote, jobs, and they left me hanging. So I said I'll never repeat that mistake again. So I'm always wondering, how do you create a team that believes in the idea and start working on it so that at least when you pitch, you have something viable? Because I don't like comparing ourselves to Silicon Valley, because when you go to Silicon Valley, if you have an idea, people just jump into it and start, helping you out. Like that's how it grows. But here we don't have something similar to that. So it's either I'm paying the developers or I do it myself, and my background is computer science, by the way, but I shifted to marketing a bit. So I'm not a pro coder per se. But I'm always thinking, how do you create a team that can be working on that product for some time? Because as you said, I understood I really liked the idea that a business can take even 5-7 years, or rather a product to fruition. So I already understand that. So I need people that can be working on it slowly by slowly, and So I've always wondered, is there a way to create such a team and people can just believe in the idea and work together? Thanks.
Yeah, so obviously I'll answer a part of it, and I think also Sam, I think you can contribute a little bit onto this question because you've actually lived it. But I'll tell you what, the people issue is a problem. It's a challenge across everyone, including even big tech companies like us. We lose people every day. I mean, I came from somewhere, right? I mean, so yeah, ha ha ha. So you find people is a challenge. I think, from the few startups that I've interacted with, and the ones that I'm involved in, having the right sort of mindset of your founding team is important. That they buy into the idea, they believe into it, and they're co-owners of it all. Now, I know we don't have a huge culture here of offering stock options to employees. Very few companies do. But that could be a way of getting buy-in, that, look, if you invest in it, you're part of you're in the CR12, your name is there. Okay? And you own part of it. Because I'm sure you can't afford, as a startup, you'd rather invest more of your money into growing the product than to pay people salaries. I'll default back to the person who I learned a lot from in terms of business, and that's Dr. Mwangi. And I remember the time when they couldn't pay salaries back then in the 90s. He said that he offered everybody, including suppliers, stocks of equity building society. He offered them stocks, including suppliers, to continue giving suppliers, because if they didn't, there was no salaries to be paid. There were no supplies that are going to get. So he offered them shares, and a lot of them, because it was a community bank then, accepted it. Now, story goes that the people you see right now who are worth billions, because the stock has appreciated 35,000 times from the 90s, 35,000, are the guys who put in 100K, because they're being paid maybe 20K back then, and so they're not being paid for 4 or 5 months. They said, okay, I'll leave my 100K inside their stocks, and now that's what they're worth. And so it's quite interesting to see that. I don't think there's one size fits all. For your situation may be different, but buying into the vision and having strong co-founders is so important, and especially in the core areas that you have someone. You don't have to give everyone stock options. Obviously, it's just the persons who you think are critical and for the success of this. It can't be you alone. And I think that's what my advice would be. And then at the same time, also just keeping the culture really, really friendly to them, because they're sacrificing a lot to be there with you. Some, I don't know what else.
I mean, again, the market will validate your idea. Let's say if I told you today we can disrupt M-Pesa, which I believe we can, and I said we're gonna do it, but I don't have the money, but this is the code we need to write, people will probably jump at it because it's such a big, bold, audacious thing that people are willing to work nights, to just get it to work. So having that big vision that you're communicating, we're gonna change, how we're gonna change the continent. We're gonna do something that is very attractive, gives you a lot of purchase, where someone can then say, just give me a living wage and I'm happy to jump in. And then hopefully the market will soon validate that you actually.
All right. Young man, do you know why I said comment later? I want you to talk to Jack directly. I want you to interact with him. Make that effort. Jack has offered. If you're the best, reach out to him. Don't sit on opportunities, please, please, please. And I cannot stress this enough. People sit on opportunities right in front of them. The opportunities are there and then they will never come back. When an opportunity is right in your face, be aware, be self-aware. Notice them. Self-awareness is the best thing you can actually have as a human being. And my friend and mentor Teddy Warrior has shown me how to do that. So do not sit on opportunities. Listen, active listening, and being aware. There are so many opportunities that have been mentioned in this crowd tonight, in this audience. More than 20 opportunities for everyone in this room. I hope you have taken note of at least one or two of those opportunities. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jessica Colasso, tech entrepreneur and musician and public speaker. My NFT is right there. It's me, jessicacolasso.com. On my Instagram, Jessica Colasso. On my Twitter, if you want to know more about my journey in music and entrepreneurship. Some of the nuggets that I can summarize for tonight, and these are my own learnings. Jack's philosophy: be humble, and hard work pays. It goes a long way. Another thing is you need to believe in yourself and be the best. He's told us the stories of how he actually had imposter syndrome. And actually, that's something that we need to embrace as human beings, because that's you undergoing a metamorphosis of becoming the next best version of yourself. So embrace it. We need a reading culture on this continent, ladies and gentlemen. I cannot stress it enough. We need to create content. We need to create literature. We need to read the literature of our own local authors in this country and on this continent. Create a reading culture among yourselves. Book clubs. Read anything. Science. Literature. Romantic. No matter what it is, let's read. If you need a recommendation list, there are many people here who have read books, at least 5 books in a year, right, Jack? Let's read. Let's keep that critical thinking and analysis going on. Let's build ourselves as people, as human beings, and let's build a community, and let's build our ecosystem. Let's tell our own stories, right? Right? You don't sound too sure, right?
Right.
Yes. All right. Another thing is believe in yourself. Really, really, really believe in yourself. I think when James Mwangi approached you and told you to run Finserve, you were like, am I capable of doing this, right? So believe in yourself. Give yourself that chance that you can do it, because others see it in you, but give yourself that chance. And I like to ask mentors, coaches out there, people who are building the ecosystem, give the young people, the Gen Zs, a chance as well. They need us to coach them. They need our time. Spend time with them and give them the opportunities. Not only Gen Zs, upcoming professionals as old as Jack and I, and older, need that type of coaching. And just that group we call them a tribe, that we can get advice from. It's only from each other that we will learn locally, building local solutions, coming up with local advice. This community will not build itself. We will build each other as a village and a tribe. And then I cannot stress enough. Please be curious. Ask questions. If you're told, please open the screen and open that website, and you don't even ask why. Please set up the mic here and set it up that way. You don't even ask why. Keep on asking why, because it really helps you in your future life. Like as Jack said, big tech companies and companies, I am in the talent space. We're looking at how people problem solve. You have the hard skills, but how do you problem solve? If you just put the chair there, and I'll be like, okay, earlier there was no problem solving. Everyone is sitting around that table, and I'm like, Jack is here, and you're facing him sideways. I'm like, yo, that's not cool. Come sit here. Yeah? That's a simple example. It's like, why are they sitting there? The audience is here. I cannot, and this is my personal advice, I cannot emphasize on being your best every time you do something. Incompetency is a pet peeve for me. I'm sorry to say so. And I'm like, every single time you do something, think of what was done well what could have been done better, and how you can improve the negatives. Always improving on what you can do. And for the young people that are in the audience, and also people who are thinking of a career path, this is my way of, as an ecosystem leader, of paying it forward. I would like to give you advice on how to interview for companies like Google, Microsoft, Safaricom, and the rest of companies like Africa Stocking, startups, because I've been in this ecosystem for almost close to 15 years, and then I can see what leaders are actually looking for. So if you need advice on what next, how to tackle an interview, please reach out to me. My Twitter handle is Jessica Colasso. My first name and then my last name, Colaco. And my email is jessicacolasso@gmail.com. I am more than willing to have a coffee chat with you. I'm giving you this opportunity. How many people reach out? That's up to you. I leave it to you. As I mentioned, almost 25 opportunities have been presented at this forum today. And with that, I'd like to invite Teddy Warrior, Africa Stocking's chief storyteller. Please give him a round.
I'm amused, just